Thomas Wade lived alone on a small farm outside Pine Valley for 12 years. His land was dry and hard to work. He had some chickens, an old barn that was falling down, and a mule too old to do much work. His house was small with wooden patches where the weather had broken it. But it still stood, and that was good enough for him. People in town called him that army guy, but most forgot which side he fought for in the war. After the war ended, he worked on trains, then moving boxes, then nothing at all. Now he just fixed broken things, fed his animals, and stayed by himself. His days were the same every day. Wake up early, make coffee, feed the mule, take care of the chickens, fix whatever the wind broke. No wife, no kids, no visitors. That's how he liked it, or at least how he learned to like it. That afternoon started like any other. The heat was getting cooler. Wind was blowing from the west. He was chopping wood near his front steps, holding his old axe tight. His shoulders hurt from old war wounds that never got better. He didn't see her at first. It was the quiet that made him look up. Not normal quiet, but thick, watching quiet. There she was at his fence. A little girl, no shoes, maybe 7 years old. Thomas stopped chopping and let the axe hang by his side. She didn't move, just stood there with her arms around her belly. Her knees were cut up and dirty. Her hair was messy with dust and dirt. She was so thin her dress looked like it might fall off. He didn't walk toward her, just watched. His stomach felt tight. Not scared exactly, but something old, like the world had changed a little and he didn't know why yet. "You lost?" he asked, speaking low and calm. No answer. Her eyes didn't blink. She looked right at him but said nothing. Thomas didn't like kids. Not because he hated them. He just didn't know what to do with them. His past didn't leave room for kids. But this one had no fight left in her, and that bothered him in a way he couldn't explain. He turned his back, walked up his front steps slow, and left the door open behind him. Inside, he found some cornbread on the shelf, cut a big piece, and wrapped it in an old cloth. He walked back out and put it on the porch rail. Then he sat down on the top step with his hands on his knees, looking at the ground. After a few minutes, she moved slow and careful. Her feet made scratching sounds on the ground. She didn't grab the bread right away, just looked at it like she was making sure it wasn't a trick. When she finally took it, she used both hands. She ate like she hadn't eaten in days. Slow, quiet, each bite careful like her body forgot how to eat. He didn't talk, just sat and watched her eat. When she finished, he stood up, went back inside, and came back with a blanket. He held it out to her. She waited, then stepped up and took it. She didn't say thank you. She didn't need to. He pointed to the corner of the porch, a spot hidden from the wind, behind a big water barrel. She curled up there with her arms around herself, eyes still open. Thomas didn't ask where she came from. He thought if she wanted to leave in the morning, she would. And if not, well, he'd figure it out then. He closed the door, locked it, and sat down in his chair by the stove. He kept his boots on and his gun close, just in case. He didn't really sleep that night. Every sound made him nervous, wind moving the roof, chickens moving around outside, a crack from the porch. He kept thinking, what if someone comes looking for her? What if she's not alone? When morning came, he opened the door and stepped outside. She was gone. The blanket was folded neat on the step. No sign of her anywhere. He stood there a long time, scratching his beard, looking at the empty space where she'd been. Part of him thought that was the end of it. Just a strange visit from a hungry child passing through. Still, he kept the blanket folded by the door. He didn't know why. The next few days were quieter than usual. Not in sound, the wind still made noise, the mule still made sounds, but in feeling. Thomas found himself looking out the window more than once, listening for small footsteps, wondering. It was the third day when they came back. He was by the chicken pen, throwing feed, when the mule started making noise. He looked up and squinted into the fading light. 2 people this time. The girl, same dirty dress, same stubborn eyes, and next to her, a woman. She moved slow, one hand resting gently on the girl's shoulder. Her clothes hung loose on her thin body. Brown hair tied back messy. Her face was thin with hollow cheeks, but her eyes were sharp, tired but alert. She stood like someone used to being told no and already ready for it. "We ain't looking for free help," the woman said. Her voice didn't shake. "Just somewhere we can stop running." Thomas looked at her carefully. Didn't speak for a long time. He saw bruises under her shirt collar. The way her hand moved a little when the wind changed. The girl, he didn't know her name yet, but he'd end up calling her Emma, held tight to the woman's side like they were one person. He thought about the porch, the empty house, the blanket. He looked her in the eye. Then he turned, walked to the house, and opened the door wide. Didn't say a word, just left it open behind him. The first thing Sarah noticed when she stepped inside was the warmth. Not just from the fire, though that helped. It was the kind of warmth that came from a place being lived in, worn in the right ways. The wooden floor made noise under her boots. A straight chair sat by the fireplace. A folded blanket lay on the edge of the bed in the corner. The air smelled like smoke, earth, and something cooked slow for hours, maybe beans. Thomas didn't look at her as she came in. He was by the stove, moving a pot with a thick cloth. The girl, Emma, followed her mother, holding onto her dress, but looking around with wide, sharp eyes. She didn't seem scared, just alert, like she was already learning the layout in case they had to run again. Sarah stopped by the door. "We won't stay long. Just need to rest a bit." Thomas didn't answer. He put out 3 bowls. Didn't ask if they were hungry. He knew they were. They sat at the table. Sarah stiff in her chair, Emma sitting on the edge of hers, feet swinging above the floor. The food was simple. Beans, hard bread, and coffee with too much grit. But none of them complained. Emma ate like she was trying to hide it, like she didn't want anyone seeing how badly she needed it. Sarah ate slower, jaw tight, looking toward the door now and then. After dinner, Thomas stood and cleared the dishes without a word. Sarah stepped in to help almost without thinking, and he didn't stop her. She washed the bowls in cold water, hands red from the cold, sleeves rolled up. It felt strange, normal almost. She caught herself humming under her breath before stopping quick. There were only 2 beds, one narrow bed near the fire and another pile of thick blankets on the floor by the stove. Thomas rolled out another blanket and spread it out without fuss. Emma's eyes got bright when she saw it. Not because it was soft or new, but because it was clean and warm and meant she didn't have to sleep outside. As the fire got smaller, Sarah spoke again, voice low. "You got a wife?" Thomas shook his head once. "Kids?" "No." She didn't ask more questions, just nodded and pulled Emma close to her. They sat like that by the fire for a while, saying nothing. The girl rested her head on Sarah's shoulder, eyes getting heavy. Thomas sat in his usual chair, watching the flames move. He didn't ask where they came from, but his mind worked on the pieces. Bruises, dirt, the way Sarah walked like her back hurt in places that had been hit too often. The way she avoided looking in mirrors, the silence between her and her daughter filled with understanding that didn't need words. At some point, Sarah said quietly, "We come from Millbrook. Man, there ain't someone we could stay near." That was all. Thomas didn't ask for a name. He didn't need to. Later that night, long after Emma had fallen asleep under the blanket, Sarah sat at the edge of her bed, brushing the girl's curls back from her head. Thomas was still by the fire. He hadn't moved. "You sure about this?" Sarah asked, not looking at him. "I ain't done anything yet," he said. "You let us in." He didn't answer. Just stared at the coals. Sarah watched him a moment longer, then nodded like she understood something about him. Not everything, but enough. She laid down next to her daughter and pulled the blanket over both of them. In the dark, Thomas stayed awake. He thought of the last time someone had slept in his house. It had been years. He thought about the folded blanket on the porch 3 days ago, about the way the girl had eaten, and the way Sarah's voice stayed steady even though her hands shook. He didn't feel comfortable, but he didn't feel wrong either. Outside, the wind picked up again. The land was quiet except for that. In town, no one would know they were here. No one would ask. That was the thing about Pine Valley. It was a place where people stayed hidden if they wanted to. Thomas had stayed hidden a long time. But now there were two others under his roof. And even though he told himself it was just for one night, deep down he knew it wasn't. Not anymore. The days found their rhythm. Sarah kept the house clean, cooked meals, mended clothes. Emma chased chickens around the yard, collected eggs in the morning, laughed more easily. Her cuts healed, her dress looked less loose. At night, she curled up by the stove with an old book, and Sarah would read the words slow and steady until Emma fell asleep. One day in town for supplies, Thomas saw a man watching from outside the store. Tall, brown vest, black hat. Something about him made Thomas's stomach tight. Didn't like the look of a man outside the store, he told Sarah when he got home. Sarah stopped moving for a second, then went back to washing dishes. Tall, brown vest, black hat. That's one of his brothers. You think he followed you out here? If he's asking around, it won't take long. That night, Thomas sat on the porch with his gun. The next few days were tense without anyone saying it. Sarah kept the curtains closed in the evenings. Emma stayed closer to the house. Thomas checked his gun twice each morning. If it comes to it, I can shoot, Sarah told him one morning. He nodded and showed her where he kept the shotgun. Around 3 one morning, Elias heard something outside. A soft crunch. Not the wind, not the mule. A footstep. He got up without making noise and opened the door just a little. He saw movement near the fence. A shadow moving between trees, watching. Elias picked up his gun and pointed it. He was calm, eyes narrow. He didn't shoot. Not yet. Just watched back. After a minute, the shape turned and disappeared into the dark. The next morning, he didn't mention it, but he went out early and followed tracks to the edge of his land. They weren't from a deer. 2 days later, it happened. Just after dawn, Elias heard a deliberate creak outside. He looked through the curtain and saw a man at the barn, tall coat, dark hat, gun over his shoulder. He's here, Elias told May. May stood up, steady. She checked the small gun in her coat pocket. I'll keep her behind the stove. Elias stepped outside before the man got to the porch. The cold hit his lungs hard. They met halfway, near the well. You Elias Cobb? The man asked. I am. I'm looking for a woman, Sarah, and a girl about this tall. He held his hand low near his hip. You the one she ran from? Thomas asked, voice low. The man smiled, but it wasn't nice. That her story? I ain't here to argue. Just want what's mine. She ain't yours. The man stepped forward. You think you can play hero out here in the middle of nowhere? Thomas raised his shotgun just enough to be clear. I ain't playing anything. I buried better men than you, and I won't think twice if you take one more step. For a second, the man looked ready to test him. But then he saw the look in Thomas's eyes. Not anger, not threat, just the dead certainty of someone who had nothing to prove. The man backed off a step and spit in the dirt. She'll run again. That's what women like her do. Then she'll do it with her head high. The man turned, walked back to his horse, got on, and rode away without looking back. Inside, Sarah was kneeling by the stove with one arm around Emma, who was now wide awake, holding tight to her mother's dress. He gone? Sarah asked. Thomas nodded. For good. You didn't shoot him, Emma said, looking up. Didn't need to, Thomas said. Spring came slow to Pine Valley. The cabin felt different now. Sarah left the curtains open. She washed her hair and let it dry in the cold air. Emma helped Thomas with the chickens again, humming without being told to be quiet. They went to town together and signed Emma up for school. Sarah named the old mule Buster. She fixed Thomas's shirts, not to patch holes, but to make them fit better. One evening on the porch, watching the sunset, Sarah asked, You ever think about how it all turned out? Didn't expect it, Thomas said. You glad you stayed? She looked at him steady. I didn't stay. I stopped running. Later, when he was carrying sleepy Emma inside, the girl grabbed his hand. You're not going nowhere, right? I'm right here, he promised. When he turned around, Sarah was standing in the doorway. She believes in you. He nodded. She should. So do I. She walked over and put her head against his chest. He stood there with his arms around her, heart beating steady like it had been waiting for years for that feeling. Outside, the night was still. Inside the cabin, they were home. All three of them. No more running, no more fear. Just a simple, steady life of staying.